Soumya and I'm going to give a presentation on database backup and recovery. So in today's world we know what is the importance of data actually. This is the session overview. We will be covering these topics. When do we need backups? What needs to be backed up? When should backups be performed? Where should they be stored? How can they be performed? And restoring from backups and having an effective backup strategy. So what's actually a backup? Anyone? We all know that. It's just a copy of what we have with us. We back up our pen drive, our memory card, just to be on the safer side so that tomorrow if we lose our data, then we would be able to restore it. So database backup is nothing but a representation copy of the data that we have in our database. And in today's world, it wouldn't be wrong to say that you are your data. Every organization's data is the most important thing for an organization. So if we lose data, then it's equivalent to losing our business. Let's imagine the case of a bank. In case of a bank, if a bank actually loses its database, if the database goes unavailable for even 5 minutes, then we would be losing thousands and thousands of transactions. So in that point, if we don't have a backup, then we would be incurring a huge loss. So backup is very much important in order to keep the flow. So these are the types of backups: logical backup, physical, local, remote, full, and incremental. Logical backup is nothing but it's a copy of the logical structure of our database, the tables and all. Subroutines, whatever we write on the database, it's a logical copy of that. And physical backup is a backup of the data files. It's a complete backup of the data directory that we have. Local backups are when these are the backups that we have in our local system, like when we have the MySQL server and the host on the same server, then that's a local backup. And remote is when we have a different host. Full backup is a complete backup of it consists of everything: the control files, the data files, config files, everything. And incremental backup is after having a full backup, when we capture different portions of data, like suppose I had a full backup yesterday and I want to track the changes that have taken place from yesterday to till date. So then in that case I would implement an incremental backup rather than a full backup because it's faster. And logical backup is always slower than a physical backup. It's preferred to have a logical backup than a physical backup. When do we need backups? This is pretty much clear. I mean, it's very simple that in case of hardware failures, we need a backup. When there is a system crash and there is fear that we lose our data, in that case, we really need to have a backup. And application failures, when we accidentally execute some drop and delete statements, then also we lose data. And sometimes while editing the table files using text editors, we corrupt data. So in that case, we lose a lot of data, and if we have a backup, then we can restore those particular tables. There's no need to restore the entire DB backup. What exactly needs to be backed up? The database content. For full backups, we need the entire database content, right from the time when the DB was created, the current the timestamp, to all the data files that are included in the database. Then logical or physical backup, and we need also log files. Log files are required for incremental backups and point-in-time recovery. Point-in-time recovery is a very important feature which we will be covering in the upcoming slides. And configuration information, that is the my.cnf. This is the config file where we have all the config informations for MySQL. And cron jobs, of course, these are the batch of SQL statements which help us in backing up our databases. When should backups be performed actually? On a regular basis, it is always wise to have backups on a regular basis, and not during high usage peaks when there is a lot of client the client when needs some kind of data. We shouldn't actually perform backups during that time. High usage peak hours should be avoided, and static data can be backed less frequently. When we have static data, we don't need to backup much because it's static. Schedule it at particular time intervals. It is always preferred to schedule backups at particular time intervals because we don't know when we are going to lose our data. Where to store? Of course, on a database server, we can select a separate server or the same server also. But it is advisable to store it on a separate server. We can copy it to on or off site. On cloud storage also, we know about Amazon S3. So we can store it on cloud. Then we can back up it to disk or tape, or choose multiple locations. Multiple locations are again different servers. Database backup methods generally consist of the backup programs. We have MySQL utility backup programs, MySQLDump and MySQL hot copy. These two are provided by MySQL only. And another method is by copying the table files .frm and .myd and .myi extension files. These are present in the data folder in MySQL. We can copy those files and we can restore it for recovery. Then we can have delimited text files. That is another method for database backup. Incremental backups using binary logs. We can have incremental backups using binary logs. One thing I would like to say, without binary logs we cannot have incremental backups. Backups using replication slaves. We do have replication slaves where we transfer the entire data of the master to the slave and perform a backup on the slave rather than on the master, as the master is accessed by the clients. Using MySQL for backups, MySQLDump. It is, as I said, it's a backup utility program provided by MySQL, and it dumps a database or transfers it to another server. Not necessarily MySQL, it can be restored on a SQL server also, because the kind of backup file that is generated by MySQLDump is nothing but a batch of SQL statements, and the syntax of MySQL and SQL server is compatible, so we can restore it on SQL server also. MySQLDump, it writes general SQL statements, create statements and insert statements for the content of the data. So this can be saved in a file. We can save it as a file and reload it later using MySQL to recreate the dumped objects. We can also generate it. The output can be SQL, CSV, text delimited or XML format also. Output of the dump file. This is a set of syntaxes that we use for backing up our database using MySQLDump. For backing up one or more tables, we can use this syntax, MySQLDump, -u, this is the username which is root, -p, your DB password, then your DB name and the table name, and this is the dump file name. For backing up multiple tables, we can just keep on adding the table names. And the dump file that will be generated by this command will be by default stored in the bin folder. I'd like to show that. I have a database mytestdb and a database mydb. I want to dump a particular table, books table, into mydb database. So my command would be we don't need to give the password because it will ask for it later. My test db So the command is executed and we can find it in the bin folder. In my first command I gave .sq extension, so it created a .sq extension. Anyway, we don't need it. This is the .sql file, this is the dump file, and I want to restore it to MyDB database. So I would be using MySQL we are extracting this, so we have this command. We are extracting the information from this dump file and we are going to restore it in MyDB database. Now I can see the whole set of tables being restored on my MyDB database. So this is how we we dumped the entire database into a different database. This is for the tables, and if we want to dump a set of databases, then we can use this command. We can give the different DB names separated by spaces, and this is the dump file name. And if we want to back up all the databases, then we can use this, all databases. These are the options which are provided by mysqldump. When we are copying data from one server to another, we use this mysqldump. This is the option. DB name, MySQL host, remote host name, and the DB name. And in case we have a very huge database, let's say of some terabytes, then we can't take a full backup of that database and restore it as it is. So we need to compress it, and we can use this. We can compress the output using gzip. So the syntax would be mysqldump -u the username, -p the password, db name, gzip, and the dump file name. Similarly, for a remote backup, we need to provide the port and the IP address of the host, and then the same way username, password, and the dump file name. So that was for backing up our database. For restoring backup from MySQL database, the dump that has been created by mysqldump, how can we restore it? The thing that I showed, MySQL -u username, password, db to restore, and the backup file. So if we are, that is in case we don't have the existing database. If we have the existing database and we want to restore it, then we can use MySQL import. This is another utility which is provided by MySQL import. Then we can make delimited text file backups also. And the syntax is select star into output file and file name from table name. For generating a CSV, here goes the syntax. You can select any number of columns into out file and the file name. Then the fields terminated by comma, optionally enclosed by, and lines terminated by from the table. This is how we are going to generate a delimited text file backup. Then making incremental backups by enabling the binary log. This is the most important thing that we would be covering, because as I said, it's not always possible to restore a full backup on a server, because it's quite tedious. I mean, it's going to take a lot of time, and we would be hampering our application performance. Even the DB performance would be hampered. So it is always preferred to take incremental backups by enabling binary logs, and without binary logs this is not possible. And by default the binary log is disabled in our MySQL. So we need to first enable our binary log. What is binary log exactly? It's a log file which provides us with information that we need to replicate changes to the database that have occurred over a subsequent period of time. And to see the listing of binary logs, we can execute this command, show binary logs. An incremental backup, it not only backups the data that has changed since the previous backup. So we can start the server with the log bin option to enable binary logging. I can show you. It's in the my.cnf file. Is the log bin. This one. It's commented out. So we need to first enable it. We need to uncomment so that binary logging is enabled. So this kind of backup, incremental backup, we would be using MySQL bin log utility program. So like we used MySQL dump program for dumping database or for backing up database, for backing up using binary log we would be using MySQL bin log utility. So this actually converts the events in the binary log files from binary format to text so that they can be executed or viewed. Generally we can't view a binary file. MySQL bin log has options for selecting sections of the binary log based on event times and position of events within the log. It tracks all kind of changes that have taken place in the database, and we can get those information based on event times and position of events. For enabling binary log, I showed you, we need to edit our my.cnf, which is in the MySQL folder, and we have to add this log bin equal to my bin log. So we can also specify which databases we want to do binary logging for. It's not mandatory that we need binary logging for all the databases. So we have an option bin log do db equal to your database name that you want to have binary logging, and we can also ignore particular db for binary logging, and then restart MySQL server. So how to restore from binary logs? Once the binary logs are created, how can we restore that? We need to go to the MySQL bin utility, and first we have to read the binary log file. Unless we read it, we cannot find out the exact position from which we want to recover our database. So in order to find out, we first need to convert it into a readable format. We can convert it into a text file or a SQL file using these commands, and we can also have a date attached to our query which would convert, like this is the one. We have a start date time, and this is the binary log file. This is the entire location, the directory path of the binary log file, and we want to read this file in text format at this particular date time. So these are all kind of configurations that we can make, which are provided by this MySQL bin log utility. Yeah, that's the binary log file. Generally we have binary log file in this format, bin log.00 something. That's the name of the binary log file. We are actually converting it into a text format in order to read it, and then we are going to find out from which point we want to take the backup and store it, and restore it. Yes, it is always, this is going to vary. This is the sequence number which is going to vary, of course.
How will we get it?
Yeah, that's what I showed. It's in the data folder. These are the files. I have it IB over here because these are the backup file, these are the binary log files for InnoDB. So this I have it over there, over here in the data folder. Point in time recovery using binary logs. This is quite important. As I said, we need to first track the data modifications using event times. In the binary logs, again we cannot restore the entire binary log. So we need to recover it using event times and event positions. When we read the binary log, we can have a start date time and a stop date time. Like this particular syntax would read the binary log file from this date until the end of the binary log, and this particular syntax would read all the binary logs and it would read the binary logs till this particular date time. I hope it's clear.
That means your starting date is today's date and stop date will be whatever the date will be mentioned.
Yes.
Right?
But what is the difference between two commands? It's literally the same.
No, actually, yeah.
Stop and
It's stop date
yeah,
time. Start date time is this until the end of the binary log.
Can you specify the intervals within this
Sorry?
start date and
Yes, we can do that. We need to just add another thing, like it's stop date time. We can append a start date time prior to that. And using event positions, there are also event positions. As there are event times mentioned in the binary log file, we have event positions mentioned in the binary log file. So while reading it, we can find out the position from where we want to start our backup and the end position. So this is a particular start position and this is the end position. So this particular batch of statement would recover the backup of from the binary log start until this particular sequence number, and this would start from this particular sequence number. This is
From where will we find the sequence number?
sorry.
How will we find the sequence number?
Yeah, when we read that binary log file, first we have to convert it into. Yeah, we have the event times and position also.
Can we
So this is actually I could show you if I had my binary log enabled, but it's not enabled, so the files that have been generated, I don't think these are readable, and no. In case we have our binary logs enabled, even in my server I don't have binary logs enabled, so I can't show you that thing. So one more backup method is making backups using replication slaves. So this database replication is a whole big thing to cover, but I would just give you an overview of what master and slaves are in terms of database. When we try to backup using replication slaves, actually it is done when there are performance problems with our master database, master server. So if we perform a backup on our master server, it is going to hamper the performance and it won't be client responsive. So rather we actually set up a slave server which is a replica of the master, and we perform backups on the slave rather than on the masters. So but for this we need to have the master server in a read-only state. There is a read-only log on the master database, so that we can only select data and we can just read the data but cannot do any data modifications, no updates, no inserts, nothing. So we can do that. We can bring it to a read-only state by flush tables with read log command, and we have to set the read-only equal to on. This same thing, we have to configure it in our .cnf file, my.cnf file. And while the master is read-only, we perform the backups using MySQL dump on the slave server. So this is actually done for load balancing. Like we don't have much load on the master server, and retrieval is faster on the master server. Then after the backup is complete, we can restore the master to the prior configuration, which is the normal operation state. We'll set the read lock to off and we'll unlock the tables. So what we can actually derive is recovering backup is equal to the last full backup and bin logs. This bin logs comprises of the incremental backup. So the synchronized binary logs are used to extract the queries issued between the backup and now, and when we have a full backup, we restore the full backup along with the binary logs, and we get to have the entire database, which is quite functional and which has all the latest data. Sometimes as I said, as I have already mentioned in previous slide, that while editing our table files, we corrupt those tables sometimes, and we lose our data. So we can avoid it, or we cannot avoid it because we are editing it, and when it gets corrupted, we can recover it by first shutting down our server in case it's still running or killing the process, and then we can add inodb force recovery equal to 1 to my.cnf file. And this is a must. We need to change our port from 3306 to any random value, and we can check for the corrupt tables using MySQL check all databases. In case we have any corrupt tables, we'll get a list of that. So this is going to show me the entire list of tables that are in my database, all databases, as I have given the command all databases, and it is showing the status OK. So that means all the tables are OK, no table is corrupted till now. So I can make a list of the corrupted tables from here. In case it's corrupted, this status is going to be corrupt, and we can list those tables and perform backups for those tables using MySQL dump. Yeah, it's corruption is loss of data. We might not know, like suppose we have lakhs of records in our table and we lose, let's say 10 rows. We might not be knowing that we are losing 10 rows. Like we think that it's not going to hamper, but it does, because these are all transactional oriented data that we handle. So we never know how it's going to hamper. We need to keep all the data. Yes, in order to prevent any kind of updates, like if we change the port, then that particular server cannot be accessed, and the corrupt tables, while the backup is being done, no database modifications are reflected.
We can restrict any access using some kind of allowed IP.
Yeah, but
I'm saying except for we can use some another way also.
Yes, but it's advisable to change the port. Like we can, I mean, it's a best practice. So then we can restart the MySQL server and then import the backup file. Importing is nothing but recovering the backup file, restoring the backup file to the server, and we can again change the port back to normal. So basically a backup strategy is very much important. So it's not that we are going to take a backup once in a while and we are going to sit relaxed, oh we have the backup, we can restore it anytime. But it's of no value if I'm backing up my database weekly, and let's say my last backup was taken yesterday. I have scheduled it for every, like today is Wednesday, I have scheduled it to Tuesday, and I have the last backup of Tuesday, and today I lose data. Today I lose my database. Then what am I going to do? Because my next schedule is on next Tuesday. So I would be losing a huge amount of data. In that case, we don't have an option but to repent why we didn't take a backup regularly. So it's always advisable to take backups frequently and regularly. And when we do some structural changes, like we add tables, add columns, add all the subroutines and all, then it's a must that we take the backup, because otherwise we would be losing track of what all logical changes we have done in our database. And of course we need to turn on the binary update log. By default it's off, so like in my server also it's off, it's not on till now. So we need to turn it on in order to keep a track of all the changes that are taking place, and in order to implement the incremental backup in future. Then we need to synchronize the update logs with the backup files. Whatever update logs are there, we need to synchronize it with the backup files, unless they are useless. Then we can store the backups on different file systems where other than our databases are, because if we lose data on our server, then it's pretty much possible that we lose the backup also. So we need to store it on a different server. We should make periodic full backups using the mysqldump command. I must say that this mysqldump command is the best MySQL utility that we have, and we can back up pretty much bigger size of databases using this command. But there are also a lot of third-party tools which help in backing up a very enormously huge amount of databases. Then we can make periodic incremental backups by flushing the logs. We can flush the logs, just clean up. Then we can schedule backups. Scheduling is a good practice. We can schedule backups for we can schedule it daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is, depending upon the kind of usage. Like if we have not so frequently used database, then there's no point in backing it up regularly. So in that case, we can schedule it for a backup like monthly or quarterly. Yes. Yes, crons. No, that we can do that using crons, or we can write a batch of SQL statements also using this MySQLDump, and we can use the timestamp, like I said, those start time and end time. We can do that, and we can schedule backups using simple MySQL statements. So we can MySQLDump is the best thing to implement in case of scheduling also. Then we need to choose the right storage platform for backups. Amazon S3 and all these are the cloud storage platforms for storing our backups. So we need to store it on our right platform so that our data is accessible faster, and we do not have the risk of losing it by any means. performance by implementing binary logs? No, it doesn't actually hamper the performance because those are a different set of log files. So
Yeah, but I think it would be writing every SQL statement which you are executing in the server. It will be writing to the binary log, right? As soon as you enable it, it will write each statement in the log file. So I don't know. I'm just thinking whether it will hamper the performance or not.
So if it is like by default off, then definitely it is hamper the
Yeah.
performance. Only when like it is like you can say when needed you can enable it.
Yes.
They are also the same that definitely it is taking more amount of log data. Like you are saying, for each operation, each interaction with thinking, it will going to add this thing. So basically what it will do is if you are doing a full backup, it will take the entire thing along with data, structure and everything. But if you are doing incremental backup, what it will do is whatever you have done earlier, it will not going to do the same thing again.
Yes.
It will start like what is the next thing on what you have done. So that means how it will track. It will track like for each interaction with data, everything it will log. That is I think difficult. But I have not confident on that. And it is seen in web because our knowledge is limited on what is available on web. Right? Can you show this incremental backup?
That binary file we just show.
Yeah.
You can just convert it into text.
Text. If it is not now, you can send it paste in that
yeah,
space.
yes, definitely. I'll do that because I don't have my binary log enabled, so
Yeah, that's
those log
whenever
files
you get
are
the time,
yes.
just put the things first.